In Argentina, Javier Milei becomes president-elect after winning the second round of elections held on Sunday. The people of Venezuela carried out on Sunday the simulation of the consultative referendum for the defense of the Guyana Essequibo. And in Palestine, the health ministry warned that the Israeli aggression has killed more than 12,000 Palestinians since October 7th. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the TeleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin the news. In Argentina, Javier Milei became president-elect after winning the second round of elections held on Sunday. According to the latest report provided by the Argentine Electoral Chamber, Javier Milei obtained 56.72% of the vote compared to 44.27% of the current Minister of Economy, Sergio Massa. So far, more than 98.85% of the polling stations have been counted. The entity reported that the turnout stood at 76.32% of the electoral roll, where 35 million of Argentinians were called to decide the next president of the country for a 4-year term. In Argentina, former presidential candidate Sergio Massa recognized his defeat before the now elected president Javier Milei.
Obviously, the results are not what we expected, and I have contacted Javier Milei to congratulate him and wish him luck. Because he is the president that most Argentines choose for the next 4 years, and I did it convinced. That the most important thing we have to leave to Argentines tonight is the message that coexistence, dialogue, and respect for peace in the face of so much violence and disqualification is the best path we can take.
Sergio Massa also thanked all citizens and groups that believe in his proposal for the country.
But I also want to thank all those who, in this discussion of two proposals for a country that were at stake, not only from unions, social movements, civil society organizations, but also from that moving micro-militancy in the house-to-house meetings, try to tell every Argentine, man and woman, which was and which is the project of the country that we represent.
The president-elect Javier Milei addressed his supporters from the campaign headquarters of Liberty Advances.
Our commitment is to democracy, free trade, and peace. We will work side by side with all the nations of the free world to help build a better world. Today is a historic night, not by us, but because one form of politics has ended and another begins.
In Cuba, the fourth Conference of the Nation on Immigration concluded with the presence of more than 400 participants from at least 50 countries. The purpose of the conference was to discuss the links with their country of origin, migration issues, culture, identity, and economic development. This conference was held after 19 years without being able to hold the event, but the great feature of this edition is that thanks to the changes in the migration policy, at least half of the participants, although living abroad, maintained their Cuban residency. In this regard, the closing ceremony was attended by President Miguel Díaz-Canel, who reiterated the will to continue developing a broad dialogue on the basis of mutual respect and defense of the homeland.
On behalf of the Cuban government, I reiterate our willingness to continue developing a frank and broad dialogue on the basis of mutual respect and the defense of the homeland. Today, as yesterday, with a commitment to continue in the battle to put an end to the genocidal blockade that has caused so much shortage, pain, and fracture in the Cuban family. The blockade imposed against our people as direct or indirect victims of that criminal policy. All of us gathered here are aware that it constitutes the greatest obstacle to the strengthening of the country's relations with the majority of Cubans residing abroad, since it hinders the regular, orderly, and safe flow of travelers, affects the links between nationals residing in the United States and their relatives and friends in Cuba, restricts the rights of their fellow citizens abroad, and affects their families in the first place.
The people of Venezuela carried out on Sunday the simulation of a consultative referendum for the defense of the Guyana Essequibo. The simulation was extended due to the high influx of people at the polling stations. The electoral simulation exercise served as a practice for Venezuelans to familiarize themselves with the procedure to be carried out on December 3rd. Likewise, authorities indicated the drill was carried out with the best, most modern and transparent technology to guarantee the rights of all Venezuelans, while citizens expressed their support to the process in defense of the Essequibo territory. The president of the National Electoral Council of Venezuela, Elvis Amoroso, described as successful the simulation carried out in the country and indicated that results will be announced soon, taking into account that at the time of his statements, voters were still casting their ballots.
I've seen a large quantity of people voting today. Even though we cannot offer official numbers in a mock election, we must say that we have seen a massive attendance to this mock election. This today was a mock election, and tomorrow we will be giving some details about the results of this election. Mostly because in some places there are people who are still waiting to cast their vote.
And on this referendum drill day in Venezuela, on the right of Venezuela over the Essequibo territory, Venezuelan National Assembly President and the chief of the Venezuela Toda campaign, which emphasizes the right to the integrity of the Venezuelan territory, had this to say about the drill and the spirit behind it.
We support with all forces the idea that we need to develop a plan, that a new government of Guyana Essequibo must be established, and these people will receive their IDs and identification papers. There are many questions, and all of them will be answered by a single person. The next December 3rd. What we have seen is an explosion of love, generosity, of Venezuelans supporting the country. Today was not about politics. Today was about Venezuelans supporting the country.
And more on this referendum drill, when asked about statements made by the president of Guyana about this referendum being a threat to stability in the region, Venezuelan National Assembly President Jorge Rodriguez had the following to say.
We are going to defend the integrity of our country. In order to do that, we are going to ignore all those kinds of statements, all those accusations of drug trafficking, and the fact that they have paid some people to exploit illegally our territorial and natural resources. So that person cannot come here and talk about this referendum, about this mock election. What we saw today was the Venezuelan people acting together united. They can keep giving those kinds of statements, and the answer of Venezuelan people will be the same one that we have seen today.
Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at TeleSUR English, where you will find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. Other stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back from the south. The Palestinian Health Ministry warned that the Israeli aggression in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank has killed more than 12,000 Palestinians since October 7th. According to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, the number of people killed by the Israeli siege on Gaza rose to 12,415, including 5,000 children, 3,250 women, and 690 elderly people. Meanwhile, the number of wounded reached 32,500. The Health Institute warned that the Israeli occupation forces have forcibly evacuated Al-Shifa hospital, one of the largest in Gaza, forcing the wounded and refugees to walk to other health centers, many of which do not have the capacity to receive more people. In the Gaza Strip, Palestinian citizens denounced the use of internationally banned weapons by the Israeli occupation forces against the civilian population.
During the whole night, they threw bombs at us. All the houses were burned. They threw leaflets to move to the south. The way was very difficult. All of the people left together, the adults with the children and the elderly. We could not protect ourselves because there was neither civil defense nor rescue teams. The houses were burning and the people themselves had to put out the fire. Everything was very difficult. We left at 8:30 in the morning. We kept walking until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We all fled with our women, young people, children, old people, my mother, and my in-laws all at once. Everything is misery and humiliation. The Jews stopped us there and detained us for about 4 hours. People were punishing us. My son fainted and fell down. My daughter could not breathe. That also happened to my wife. She could not breathe. This is not life. Until now, we don't know where to go for real. We don't know what to do. Look at them. Here they are. Walk around and look at them. There are more than 25 people here. This is my family group. This is my daughter, and she is wounded by the bombing. This is the little one. Came here, daughter. See how she is walking. Look how my daughter is walking. It is a humiliation. My daughter has 30 days that she can't use her leg. Now she is limping. She is a child. We are living in misery for God's sake. Look at us. Do you think this is fair that we are like this? We are citizens. They gave us flyers. We took refugee in the school. They gave us a small pocket of rice for every 8 people. I swear to God, for 20 people they gave us 2 trays.
In Palestine, 60 Palestinian journalists have been killed by the Israeli siege since the beginning of the attacks on the Gaza Strip. Authorities reported this Sunday on the murder of the journalist and president of the institution Press House, Bilal Shatala, in an Israeli airstrike. In this sense, the Center for Defense and Freedom of Journalists has repeatedly condemned systematic attacks against journalists since the beginning of the Tel Aviv aggression. At the same time, they emphasized that the forces of the Israeli regime are attacking Palestinian journalists, spreading rumors and accusations against them that put their lives at risk. In Portugal, citizens mobilized in support of the Palestinian cause and in rejection of the Israeli siege against the Gaza Strip, called by the Collective for the Liberation of Palestine under the slogan "Stop Genocide, Free Palestine Now." Demonstrators marched from the town square, where the headquarters of the City Hall of Lisbon is located, to the gates of the Assembly of the Republic. The mobilized expressed their support and solidarity with the victims of Israel in this Gaza massacre, and also to the defense of the immediate ceasefire to stop the massacre. Demonstrators also called on Western governments to withdraw their political, diplomatic, economic, and military support for Israel. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at TeleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. A final short break, don't go away. Welcome back from the south. In France, citizens demonstrated in rejection of the release of the police officer accused of murdering a teenager on June 27th. The mother of the teenager summoned protests on Sunday afternoon and called the decision of the judges unfair. Likewise, the judges alleged that the release of the police officer represents a lower risk for public order. In June, a police officer shot at Nahel, a 17-year-old Frenchman of North African origin, in the French municipality of Nanterre, which led to disturbances rejecting police action. Moroccan security corps prevented the entry of more than 400 migrants to Spain through the Venezuelan border in Ceuta. The situation generated the deployment of the Spanish Civil Guard to reinforce security in the border perimeter, although the Moroccan authorities had control of the situation. According to the latest data from the UN, the country has more than 6 million migrants, which is equivalent to more than 14% of the country's population. The governments of Armenia and Azerbaijan established an agreement on the basic principles for a peace treaty. The information was released by the Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan during the opening of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. According to Pashinyan, it was agreed that Armenia and Azerbaijan would have no territorial claims between each other. That is, there is a mutual recognition of each territorial integrity on the basis of the staff map of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. The territorial conflict between these two nations is long-standing, based mainly on the control of the Nagorno-Karabakh region, an area which during the existence of the Soviet Union was adhered to Azerbaijan, but where the Armenian population lived. The Democratic Republic of the Congo began the campaign for the presidential, legislative and provincial elections next December with a call from the Independent National Electoral Commission to respect laws and regulations. Nearly 26 Democratic Republic of the Congo presidential candidates will have 1 month to enlist the support of the Congolese people. According to data from the electoral body, some 44 million voters of a population of almost 100 will elect the national president on December 20th. In this regard, the CENI announced operations for the issuance of voter cards for cases of lost, defective or invalid conditions. The Electoral Commission also assured that it works to guarantee free, democratic, transparent, peaceful and inclusive elections. Zimbabwe's health ministry declared a state of emergency in the capital Harare over a cholera outbreak that has claimed dozens of lives across the country. According to the authorities, more than 7,000 suspected cases and 150 deaths from cholera have been reported so far throughout the African country. Officials indicate that the city of Harare is the most affected by the disease, where 13 people have died since the outbreak began in February. In this context, they urge the population to maintain the corresponding biosecurity measures, since cholera is contracted from a bacterium that is generally transmitted through contaminated water or food. In Japan, low household consumption generated a risk of economic recession after 2 consecutive quarters of growth. After a 4.5% growth in the economy in the second quarter of 2023, the country's gross domestic product declined by 2.1% in the following quarter, a larger drop than expected in the region. Low citizen consumption and weak exports complicated the central bank's efforts to remove monetary stimulus. Economist Stefan Angrick commented that the Japanese economy is not out of danger of a feasible recession, warning that the end of exports brought economic weakness back to the forefront. And we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on our social medias on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. We will now run a short video clip on Venezuela's successful mock election held on Sunday in the nation's defense of its territorial integrity and historical rights. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.
Todos a una sola voz decimos: